Welcome to the Rural Ed Leaders Podcast, where we explore the unique challenges, opportunities, and research shaping successful rural education leadership. We're your hosts, Dr. Michelle Reinhardt,
Dr. Bradley Carpenter,
and we're so glad you're here to learn from uplifting stories, practical strategies, and insightful discussions that will equip and empower you as a rural ed leader.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Henson, for being with us. I want our listeners to prepare. They need to have their energy ready, and they need to have their notebooks out, because we're going to hear some wisdom today from one of my dear personal and professional friends, Dr. Henson. He's the superintendent of Marlin ISD, the 2024 Region 12 Superintendent of the Year, nominated for Texas Superintendent of the Year.
Let's go.
I'm going to brag about you a little bit, Darryl. I know that you don't want me to brag too much, but at Marlin, since 2020, you've guided the district to a bunch of achievements, including a 30-point increase in the accountability rating, regaining full accreditation. We know your hands-on, people-focused leadership. You've got your Doctor of Education curriculum and instruction from Go Cougs. Put those up. We connect on so many different levels, Darryl and I. He got his master's at UT Arlington, and then his bachelor's. Come on. We got the Cougs and we got the horns up, both of us.
Longhorn.
Under his leadership, Marlin ISD has earned the highest financial audit rating, which is no small. That's a big accomplishment. And secured a $32 million bond for essential facility upgrades. He's going to share with us his journey, his commitment to academic and community excellence, and his vision for rural education. Thank you, Dr. Henson, for being with us today.
No, thank you all for having me. It is an honor to be here, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Love it.
Thank you.
Let's start us off.
I was going to let you start us off.
Okay, well, let's go then. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, or have you talk a little bit, Darryl, about your background. So you've held leadership roles in both urban and rural districts. Talk to us a little bit about what inspired your move to Marlin ISD, right? Coming from an urban background, how did you end up leading in a rural district, and what's kind of excited you about that work?
So my journey to education and leadership started in the third grade when I was 8 years old.
Let's go.
I was that student who would love to help out the teacher, help out his peers. And I wanted to solve the problems. I was that young kid who wanted the chalk in his hand to go to the chalkboard. Now, my motivation was slightly selfish, because our teacher said no one can go outside to recess until the entire pod got the information correct.
Like, I'll take care of this.
I'm focused.
Yeah.
Being the young, aspiring Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon, who I thought I was getting tired of not getting a lot of recess time.
Amen.
So I took it upon myself to get up and teach and break down whatever the lesson was, everything from phonics to fractions to the solar system. We were going to learn today in the third grade. But when that happened, the teacher bug bit me. And so I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be an educator. I wanted to be a principal. I wanted to be a superintendent. Upon graduating high school, I went to the world's greatest university, the University of Texas at Austin.
Did you hear that, Harvard graduate?
I did. I mean, those are fighting words in Texas, but we'll let it go. He's our special guest. So
the world's greatest, because what starts here
changes the world.
But I majored in elementary education. So I thank God that I've had a level of focus my entire life, and I've had a very traditional path. I've been an elementary, middle, and high school teacher. I've been an elementary, middle, and high school principal. I've been an assistant superintendent and now a superintendent. What led me to Marlin ISD was the need. Whenever you look at what was Texas's longest low-performing district, it was Marlin ISD. And the thing that really struck me was the majority of the students in the district looked just like me. And so it was a call that God placed on my heart to say, no longer Marlin ISD can students come out and graduate and be permanent second-class citizens. Take your gift, take your calling, take the love you have for people in education, and head right down Highway 6, and let's educate and love the community of Marlin, Texas.
I love that. And two things that stood out to me from that, Darryl, you talk about like how this calling just got a hold of you. And I love that moment. I'm actually thinking about some kiddos in our elementary school that I'm like, future superintendent right there, right? Like you could see that calling on their life, but it's so much deeper than a job or another career. Like you get that this is what I was put on earth to do, right? Yeah. To help advance outcomes and to have that, to lead that light bulb moment in the classroom, and then kind of the progress you've made since then. I also love your focus on, every district and every school deserves an incredible leader. And sometimes when, as aspiring leaders, we're thinking about, where to go next, or like where am I being called to serve? We might think, but that context, I don't know, like that might be too hard. Do I start off with something that's not so much of a challenge? And here you are saying, I saw this challenge and knew these children deserve better, and I want to be part of the leadership that enacts that for our kids, right? Because every community deserves incredible leadership. That's amazing.
Darryl, when you were in El Paso, and there's some elitism in educational leadership in the sense of, there's some people that would never consider going to a small district to begin their leadership career. Right. So talk to us about that calling and how you framed it, because part of the purpose of this podcast is to be an appreciative view of rural. It's not less than, it's not a step down or a step to the side. It could be your final destination. So talk to us about your mindset of moving from El Paso to Marlin ISD, Marlin, Texas, and how you frame that in your own head.
Because I think we're hitting it right on the head. Rural is actually the majority of what this state is comprised of.
Amen.
And we have to understand that there's children everywhere, in your urban centers, in your suburban areas, and then of course in rural Texas. I am a proud Texan. Like, Texas is who I am through and through. And if I'm a true Texan and I love the red, white, and blue, I love the Lone Star State, and I love education, I believe that the majority of our children, the majority of our school districts, which are rural school districts, you're right, they need great educational systems to have great educational outcomes. We cannot have a great Texas without a great rural education system that's preparing all children across the state to be successful in what they want to do.
Right.
Yes, being born and raised in Houston, Texas, I'm still country at heart. I have my truck, I have my boots, I love the rodeo. Rural to me is a location, but it's really the backbone and the heart of the state of Texas. And if you are a true educator, I believe let's educate all across our state, but especially in areas that keep Texas thriving and truly represent what this great state is.
Right. Love that. One of the reasons that Bradley and I are so excited to have you on the show is we know where this story goes. We know the incredible work that you have led in Marlin. And so share some of that with our listeners. Let's talk about the transformational change. So when you took the helm of Marlin ISD, lot of transition. I mean, that was the start of a lot of transition and transformation within the district. Like you shared, chronically underperforming district that really wasn't operationalizing that community's view of what they wanted for their kids, right? And so talk to us about what's happened over the time that you've been there. What were some of your first priorities? What changes have y'all led? Where are things at now? Kind of give us an overview of the Marlin story that you've helped lead.
The only way that I can tell the Marlin story is from a pure place of authenticity. So all of the colloquialisms and it's getting thrown out the window right now. All the jargon out the window.
Right.
Because Marlin has been the greatest opportunity years of my life, not just my career, because of the community and the people within our community and our students. So Marlin failed for 10 years. There's no nice way to say it. Academically failed for a decade. And truly think how long a decade is. That means when I came into the school district, unless you were a junior or a senior, all you knew was academic failure.
Right.
This is systematic. It's systemic. It is in the culture of the district and of the community. So I knew before I can talk about curriculum, I had to really get to the hearts of the people and say our culture has to change. Our mindset has to change. We have to become allergic to average. If it's average in Marlin ISD, we cannot do it anymore.
Right.
So for my uniforms for band, they had to be upgraded. Our uniforms for athletics, it had to be Nike. I'm a Nike guy. As it relates to our logos, Marlin had 13, 14 different bulldogs. One looked left, one looked right, one looked straight.
Still using one of them from the 70s. Yes, yeah, sure.
One was from the 70s, had an afro. I said, no, we're picking one bulldog. Right. And it's going to look to the future. So we identified one bulldog. Then we had so many shades of purple and yellow. It was 50 shades of purple. And I was just trying to figure out what is going on. So once we began to truly identify our identity, people began to say, you know what, you're right. We need stability. We need focus in the logos, in the graphics. I made sure that our website was updated. Mind you, I'm not mentioning anything right now about academics. Right. I wanted for the look and the feel to represent culture and community, because it's always going to be people over programs. Right. Before I start talking about any program, I had to make sure that the stakeholders, the individuals that we call a team, that we call a family, had to be on board. And so as we worked together and we made sure that we led with love before we led with curriculum. We led with love before we talked about instruction. And I think most importantly, we led with love before we began to hold anyone overly accountable. B, 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 A are the main highlights of the Marlin Independent School District. In 2022, the district received a B rating, a rating of 86, the most academic growth in the state of Texas. B, we passed a bond, a 47-cent tax increase. A lot of communities can't pass a bond with no tax increase or a 2 cent, 47 cents. Our community was bought in, and they now believe in the children in our district to say, regardless of our taxes, we now know what they can achieve. So let's give them what they need, a 21st century facility and stadium to continue the legacy and history of the Marlin Independent School District. Board, we got our board back. State takeover was in the district. State intervention, no takeover.
You're like, call it what it is. Yes, sir.
We're going to call it what it is. And so whenever the state has taken over a district, the board members are appointed. There's a conservator in the district, and the local governance is pretty much out the window. But we are the first primero district in the state of Texas to regain local control for academic reasons.
Yes, that's great.
Districts have been taken over before as it relates for financial issues, areas of corruption. But if you think about it, there's been other ISDs who had the similar academic problems and they got merged. North Forest and Houston ISD, Mark in Texas City, Wilmer Hutchins in Dallas. Oh, there's a lot out there. Marlin ISD is the first, and we're predominantly African-American in rural Texas. So that shows that despite being a rural community, our children are more than capable. And the last thing for the A is our accreditation. Marlin ISD was a school district that was not accredited by the state of Texas. So sadly enough, the diploma was not worth the paper it was printed on. Not only did we regain our accreditation, we did so well as a school system. Our children are phenomenal. They made our accreditation retroactive to the years in which we lost it.
Incredible. Wow. Right.
So that's the pride point, the joy. And I'm just blessed to be the leader. I was just there saying, let's talk about the vision and let's do these things. It is our faculty and staff, our principals, our students, our parents, our community members coming together as one and saying we can and we will, because we are allergic to average in the Marlin Independent School District.
I love your focus on how the staff made it happen. And if staff were on this call, they would also talk about how that leadership matters, right?
Gosh,
that there's work you came in and led that helped them actualize the community's true vision for their children, right? I don't imagine that this turnaround story was we fired all the staff and brought in all brand new people. We're serving a whole different group of kids. We're talking about this is serving our community's kids with our community's staffing. But what are the changes that we as adults need to make so that we can actualize these better outcomes for our children? And so I know there's so many intentional leadership moves that you made, Darryl, that helped facilitate this transformation. And that's really what we're going to dig into in the show as well, to help pull back that curtain. But I think it's so powerful that we start with this overview so our listeners see like what is possible.
That's right.
Because sometimes we get stuck in this whole like, oh, but like, man, that one campus that we have has always, had a tough go and isn't able to get where we want to get, or we've got this challenge. And we don't often see kind of that baked in culture that is keeping that failure sustaining among us, the adults, right?
This podcast, I mean, are we doing 3 hours?
We're doing the 1 hour brief. Abbreviated version. Yes.
I always, one of the quirky ways that my mind works, I think of t-shirts or hashtags, and I've got allergic to average.
So good.
People over programs. I know we're going to get about 10 more. Talk a little bit about, recruit. I know that you have grown your own there, but you've also done a good job of bringing in talent from other places. So talk to us about the mix of taking who you had, which in many cases were excellent people, but maybe caught up in a culture that wasn't allergic to average, and then bringing outsiders in. Talk about that effort to do both, grow your own and bring new blood into Marlin ISD.
The benefit, I believe, of most rural districts is that sense of community.
That's right.
A lot of times in your larger school systems, you could just be a number along the way. But in a rural school district, you have to lean on and embrace and really highlight the fact that you are actually a part of a team. You are on a journey with the peer. Now, my focus really was on coaching up the leaders, the staff, the children, the parents who are there in the district. It's not about letting everyone go and bringing everyone else in. Right. Because as we mentioned earlier, we talk about these are fine people who actually have a care and a love for the children in the Marlin Independent School District. It was my job as a superintendent now to provide them with focus. I'll say this, and it's kind of bold and people get taken aback, but losers have goals and winners have systems. And we had a systematic approach to everything that we did in Marlin ISD. There was a system for how you turn the lights on, for how we assess, for how you mop the floor, for how you walk outside. Everything was going to be systematic, and it was going to be aligned to our strategic plan that was more than just a document on the website. It was deliberate actions every single day that we can track and that we can monitor. And so now the recruitment piece, the best tool for advertising and marketing is actually word of mouth. That's right. We think we spend money on all these ads here or there, and let's go put a billboard on I-35 or Highway 6 or somewhere off of I-20. No, ma'am. It is the faculty and staff telling their peers, their friends on social media about the great things that are happening in the district and how they feel as educators. Now in Marlin, we have a very low turnover rate. I mean, people come and people stay because that just speaks to the notion of they really like and they really enjoy the vision. People follow leaders for 3 reasons. And this all ties into recruitment. As a leader, you can lead. I mean, leadership to me is synonymous with influence. So people will follow a leader in which they have a relationship with. Like, hey, if I have a relationship with you, I will follow you. A lot of times people just say, hey, I'm a great worker. You're the boss. I'll follow you because you said so. But I think the most important way, which helps with recruitment, is teachers and students and community members, they follow leaders who are competent, who understand what it takes to turn around a school system. Yes, curriculum is important. Yes, finance is important. But what's more important is understanding and being competent about that sense of community. And when you put all those things together and you begin to articulate it and you communicate it and you're bold with it, please believe I'm not liked by a lot of people.
3. There's only 3.
But last time I checked, I'm here to serve 912 students at Marlin ISD. I can't worry about a random adult who was mad at me.
That's right.
But the proof is in the pudding. Our staff is beginning to, and they have articulated the great things that are happening for children and it's helped bring in a lot of great students and families back to Marlin ISD.
That's great.
All that. So powerful. And I think one of the things we really try to do on the podcast is get into some of those how. So we kind of balance this like, okay, theory or forest level view with like, what does that look like at the tree level? Or what does that look like on the, kind of boots on the ground level? So let's dig into this, culture of high expectations, culture of excellence. I love this, allergic to average. And there are people that resonates with so many of our rural ed leaders are like, yes, that's what I believe in. But how do I do that? How do I take that from something that I'm trying to live out in my life and propagate it through a school system to kind of lead that turnaround? So talk to us a little bit about like the how of that. What did that look like? How do you establish and sustain this culture of high expectations for your students, for your staff, and really for the whole community within Marlin? What did that look like?
Correct. So our mantra is #committed to excellence. And just think about that word commitment. And excellence can be subjective, but we define what excellence was to us in Marlin ISD. Excellence was children who could think for themselves, children who cared about themselves and their peers, children who tried hard and never gave up. There was no opting out. So we identify excellence. It was staff and parents who were involved. It was community members who supported our children and did not, any negative comments, they addressed it with the right person. They didn't take it to the book of the face. So after we defined excellence, we were committed to it. Because once again, as educational leaders, a lot of us can talk. I will out sermon anybody.
You're like, I'm ready.
But at the same time, I will also out organize anybody as well. I will out systematically perform anybody as well. And so the how just came down to identifying and creating a shared strategic plan that was board adopted and board approved. So now don't argue with me, argue with policy. But we identified a strategic plan that said, here's what we believe in Marlin ISD. We believe in early childhood literacy. We believe in middle math. We believe in college, career, military readiness, and we believe in extra and co-curricular activities. So once we identified what we believed in, I said, okay, we're now all going to get behind it with our human talent and our financial resources. And then we just track along the way. We report to the board our data. So we have data that is qualitative and quantitative.
That's good.
And so you do it because now we're able to put metrics behind what we believe. Anyone can come up with a great goal. Anyone can grab the microphone and go give a state of the district at the Rotary Club, at the Lions Club, maybe even at the actual club. And so, but at that point in time, you're just talking.
Right.
You're just speaking. You have to back it up with your actions. And I feel like in Marlin, we have a faculty and staff who backs it up like Juvenile every single day. And some of you all will get that. Some of you all
look it up. Yeah, look that one up.
Some of our rural ed listeners are like, Juvenile.
Is that
Juvenile, back it up. Yeah, it's like,
so good.
Google it, and then you will get the reference.
That's funny.
So two things I'm pulling from that too that I love. When you talked earlier about how you were talking about how failure was baked into the culture, and you had very intentional moves about attending to the details of excellence. Right. This is what we're going to look like. This is what we're going to wear. This is what clean school is going to look like, and what excellence looks like in that lens.
They used to cut the grass and leave the clippings. I said, no, blow it. blow. Campus curb appeal. I'm an HGTV kind of guy. So campus curb appeal. I'm like, no, like, I know we out in the country. Look, I'm as country as they come, but blow the grass, please.
But it's such a great example of like in the details, right?
Yeah.
What are the details of excellence that we then expect? And let's be clear about them, right? Let's not be like mad when it doesn't happen. If we haven't clearly conveyed, this is the standard that we're expecting, and here's why, right? So I love that, and this idea too around the systems for everything. So sometimes systems can be seen as kind of this big city thing. I'm like, oh, that's a big district thing. In Texas, we might say that's a 4A, 5A, 6A thing, right? And what does that look like to bring that to a smaller district? But what I'm hearing from you, and would love your insights on this, Darryl, is that like really you're using your systems to define excellence, right? And using them to say, this isn't about micromanaging. This is about setting the bar. This is what we expect in this. So, I mean, can you talk more about how, I loved your comment earlier about like even losers have, I don't know if I'm saying it right, even losers have goals, but winners have systems.
Losers have goals, winners have systems.
Let's go. So like talk a little bit about to what end, right? How does that serve within a rural district who might think like our system is like everyone just tries to band together and do what they can. How have systems really helped kind of set the bar for what excellence looks like within Marlin?
Because it provides clarity. We can go read all these leadership books, but you're going to waste your time.
Right.
Well, okay. Reading is fine, but
that's the T-shirt.
But I'm being authentic right now.
Right.
So you can read all these books, but there's also a practical approach. Some of that is theoretical. Right now, we're talking practical. As a leader, one job, and that is to be clear. If I was to ask you what's the most important thing in leadership, is clarity. And when I say that, people are like, oh, that actually makes sense. Exactly. That wasn't in your book that you read on audio book, but I'm telling you right now. And so systems provide clarity. And it's not a big city thing. It's a life thing.
Yeah.
If we want for our children, if we want for our children to achieve something, we have to be clear about the path they're on.
Right.
I'm a former coach, an actual athletic coach and an instructional coach. And I knew that if I had an outcome that I wanted for my teachers or my athletes to achieve, it's just not about the competition or the game day or the state assessment or the interim assessment. It was about what path have I set up? Have I been clear about? Have I provided supports to help them achieve along the way? It's a combination of the journey and the destination. And sometimes as leaders, I get it. We are the visionaries, Michelle. Our job is to talk about the end result and the end goal. But that's motivation. That's hype. And we can hype anyone up. But as a true leader, are you able to roll up your sleeves and say, yes, I spoke about the end goal, but now let's all step back and talk about the A, the B, the C, the D, and the E to get to the Z. In a rural education, because we face various challenges that not a lot of other communities have to face. From just spacing, sometimes our location to get to a Walmart or a mall or things of that nature. But that's okay. But we're going to have a systematic plan to say, maybe in spite of some of that convenience that you might have in more of an urban center, we're still going to achieve the same outcomes, if not greater outcomes.
Love that. And one of the kind of pings for me, an example that someone shared with me before is a lot of times in education, we'll kind of have this black box of strategy, meaning we're clear on what we want as the outcome. And like you're saying, Darryl, part of our job is like that vision, that hype, this is what we want, this is our goal on the other side of it. But then like how we're going to get there is kind of this like fuzzy black box of no strategy, right? Of just like, hey, we're just going to work hard. We're going to love kids. But there aren't the details that actually show how are we going to reach that goal of an A designation or of this percentage of participation in extracurriculars or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what you're really talking about, Darryl, is that void in the middle is the strategy of systems, right? What are the systems you're going to build that we're going to do this and this and this and this, and that's going to get us there, and not leave that to chance, which is oftentimes kind of where we drop the ball on the strategy side of things.
Because hope is not a strategy. I love the Lord. My father is a deacon, but I can't pray my way to success.
Correct.
I'm in church every Sunday. Hands raised. Like I'm a good Baptist church goer.
Right.
Red carpet, red pews, red hymnal, old school black church. You be in there for 17 hours on a Sunday. You get all day.
Sweating.
But I can't pray my way to success.
Yeah.
Right.
And so even I think about a system right now, how PEEMS enters the information for CCMR. We can have the children do all the stuff, and they do the Texas College Bridge, and they get the IBCs. Okay. Principal gives it to Dr. Henson. Dr. Henson looks at it and verifies. Principal now gives it to the PEEMS coordinator. PEEMS coordinator verifies. PEEMS coordinator calls Region 12. I mean, it's a check. So when I know I'm logging into Teal, and Teal got so many, I just be clicking Michelle and Teal. I'm the worst.
You're like, is it this one? Is it this one?
So the funny part is they accuse me of changing grades. I can't even do Teal.
Yeah. You know? You're like, that's not me. That's not me. Yeah.
We'll get to that later on too. But it's a true step by step with arrows. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Then we verify. And so along the way, we've had checkpoints. And I get it. All the cue phrases, you need to inspect what you expect. No, you need to write down and check off what you expect instead of inspecting.
Right. Such a great example too of how such a great balance between this high level vision. This is what we want. And then, okay, let's talk practically about what that looks like, right? And these are for those who are listening outside of Texas, PEMS is our statewide data system. All these, you have similar terms in all these other places, but you're seeing here a superintendent who can go back and forth between this, yes, this is the high level vision, but we're not leaving a chance how we're going to get there. Right. Here are very intentional systemic steps that we're going to take to make that happen. And let's write it down. Right. Let's communicate it to people. Let's be clear on what those things are, not through a micromanaging lens, but through this is what this looks like. And interestingly, I was at a campus in Dallas ISD. It was a small, I say small, probably not small for them, but small like our size-ish campus, K through 8 campus in South Oak Cliff, National Blue Ribbon School, right? Has Dr. Masters, I believe, is the principal there, has done incredible work leading that campus. And one of the things that I learned from her and her staff, who do a lot of great work in the same space around, we're going to put our systems on paper and have them in a playbook. And this is how we do dismissal. This is how we do this. This is how we do that. Yep. And her staff talked about how those systems were freeing,
that's right,
not constraining. And I was like, wait a minute. Right? I'm coming from
provide clarity.
Right. Because they provide clarity. That's this is how we do this. And so you're not having to think about is it this way or that way? You're also not going to have as many tension points where Bradley's interpreting that expectation one way, Michelle's interpreting it another way, and then we're both ticked at each other because we're not doing it the way each other thought.
Right.
And we don't even know. We're not even communicating about that. And it was so empowering to see, wait a second, this is a mindset shift that I need to take as a leader. About how systems can actually be empowering instead of constraining.
The freedom piece is a huge, and Darryl, one of the models that we kind of thought of when launching this podcast are the visions of Tim Ferriss. I know you've heard of Tim Ferriss, but one of the things that he always does a great job of is talking about okay, what are practical tools that you use? I want to get that out to the user. So I want to humanize your success a little bit, because talk to us about maybe what did your life look like? Give superintendents that are listening to this right now, or assistant superintendents or teachers that want to be a superintendent in a rural district or any district, how did your daily, weekly, monthly life change, and how did you organize your time and your own personal well-being those first months, 6 months of as a superintendent, Marlin? Just give us the real Darryl snapshot of what that looked like in terms of your time and energy and well-being.
There's no balance to greatness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we have to understand that if you want to achieve something, you have to go achieve it. So if you want work-life balance, then the superintendency of a district that needs transformation in a rural area or any area, it might not be for you.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There is no balance when it comes to greatness. You're either all in or you're not. So when coming to Marlin ISD, myself and 6 other people, we rented an Airbnb on the Baylor campus, and we worked 6 to 7 days a week. Because Marlin had that much of an actual need. And it felt like the real world from MTV House. And we had a great time. We cooked for each other, and this cannot be replicated. It was just 6 committed individuals who I had convinced to join me on his journey in Marlin. And we lived together, and we worked and we worked and we worked, because I knew that we had to get it right away. Children only have one time in 3rd grade, one time in 5th grade, one time in 7th grade. And so we couldn't operate initially off this 5-year, 10-year plan.
Yeah.
No, we had a 1-year plan. We had a 6-month plan because the state was very clear. COVID saved the district. And so if you all do not turn it around, Marlin ISD will be closed. Marlin ISD will be shut down. And so I said, we have to work. And so my personal well-being, I like to exercise. So I make sure that even still to this day, I go for jogs every morning. I will not go to work until I've gone for a jog. In Marlin, we knew that we had to get it right now. And so with the state already having taken away the district's accreditation, knowing that we had failed for the previous 10 years, I was committed, along with my team, that we were going to make an immediate impact. That's one thing that we continue to repeat, immediate impact. Well, according to all the literature, it takes 3 years to begin to build it. Okay, well, that literature, just put it to the side with the cat in the hat and green eggs and ham.
Right.
We're going to rewrite some literature ourselves, and we're going to get it right now. So then we have the 180. We were going to make a 180-degree change in 180 days. And so as a leader, what does that mean as it relates to that level of balance? Well, greatness has no balance. And I had to be all in, and I had to be committed in my professional life and in my personal life. But that was the sacrifice that I was willing to make for other people's children.
Right.
I had to love them like my own. And that's not only a mindset, that's not just words, it's also through actions. And so I embraced the work. Once again, I wanted to be a superintendent since I was 8 years old. And here I am, a 35-year-old, young African-American superintendent in the state's longest low-performing district. I convinced 6 people to come with me. I have a district of 900 students. So now I have thousands of people are depending upon my leadership, my grit, my resolve, and my level to just get things done. I'm a Nike guy. Just do it. And we did it.
So, and I think that's important. I mean, I want every podcast, I want people to understand the reality behind the story. What is the daily grind? And so I think that's really important. And, the work that you did and the personal sacrifices. And I think what you talked about, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. A lot of people want to lead, but our leaders have to lead. It's like, okay, you want it, but do you really want the grind and to accept everything that comes with it? Right.
Have things gotten, how has your life adjusted? How many years have you been there now?
5.
So how is your life now, your daily?
It's like 55. Again, the real takes. Yeah, real takes. Yeah.
How is your daily, weekly, routine changed from where you're at today to when you began?
It hasn't changed because there's always a need. The need now just adjusts and it shifts. So if Marlin initially, and we wrote them down, we had 39 major issues. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So this year we're going to tackle 6, next year 6, next year 6, but we still have to maintain the previous 6 in which we fixed. So we still work 6 days a week.
Right.
But I'm blessed that I've had the same core team there and they get it. But the reason why it doesn't feel overwhelming is because our mindset. We hired educators and ourselves. First thing, we have a heart for children. Second thing, we have tenacity, not passion. Passion runs out. Tenacity will burn the midnight oil. And then third and most important, we have a will to win. We're not going to lose.
Right.
And sometimes it's that level of confidence that we all speak with. And I tell my children all the time now, because I am the 8th grade math teacher. I am the track coach. I do drive a bus. We do it all in Marlin. And I tell them to this day, have confidence. People are going to call you arrogant and cocky and all these. I don't care what they call you. You have to know who you are and whose you are. So I break separation of church and state. I let them know all the time, you have to really know who you are as an individual. And when you start achieving great things, people are going to talk about you. But you represent the name on the front of your chest that says Marlin, but you also represent the name on the back of your chest that says whatever family you come from. but your family is also a part of the overall Marlin community.
Love that. So one thing I'm thinking about too is like such a powerful and empowering turnaround story. But if we look at this turnaround school, turnaround district kind of perspective, but through a rural lens, how is that different, or is it, than a turnaround in an urban setting? And so I think, through an asset lens, we might see some of the additional strengths that a rural community can bring to help turn around efforts. There's probably also additional challenges as well. So Darryl, talk to us a little bit about like how rural turnaround looks different or doesn't, than perhaps an urban turnaround situation.
Correct. I think a major difference comes down to the infrastructure and the actual resources that you have within a school system. Mainly technology. Even though we might have a similar budget per capita, I feel like rural schools need additional funding because the need to continue to kind of close the gap is greater than what you would find in a urban or suburban area. Because of you have children who actually spend a lot of time outside, working outside, really just still enjoying that freedom of being a child. That has limited their amount of time and use of technology for instructional and for personal resources as well. But now we have a state assessment that is technology based. And what I've noticed in Marlin ISD is that not only is it testing your ability to do math, it is also some computer literacy as well. But when do we have the time in that same 8-hour day to not only give you the great instruction that you need in your core content areas, but also continue to actually teach, not not expose you to the technology that you're going to use. Then in Marlin, our city has a major issue with public and civic infrastructure. This year alone, we have lost 9 days of school due to no water in the city of Marlin. Like no water. I'm not saying minimal, actual no water. And so think about what that does to a child's mindset. Whenever you can't wash your hands, you can't take a bath, you cannot cook. And it's happened every year that I've been in the district. In other rural communities, there are similar issues as well as it relates to the infrastructure. And so sometimes I don't think that what that might do to just the natural mindset and emotional well-being of some of our children in our rural communities as it relates to their peers in urban areas. And I really wish that a deeper dive and study could be taken to look into the various impacts socially and emotionally on children and how that might cause them to perform greater or not as much success as their peers due to just their overall environment in a rural community.
Yeah, so fascinating. And
dissertation idea.
And we're nodding over here because we're like, oh my goodness, water infrastructure, that is lived reality here too. But it's such a great example of like, so where does that show up in the state's accountability system? Not at all, right? It'll show up in terms of impact, but not in terms of like as an input or whatnot that's being evaluated. And so fascinating when we talk about, schools are the center of rural communities. Schools are also impacted within under-resourced rural communities in ways that aren't always just known about or amplified or definitely accounted for at that legislative level as well. So that's fascinating.
Darryl, I know that you are brutally honest in a good way, and that's one of the reasons I always try to put you in front of my students when I'm teaching doctoral classes. Tell us about, again, to humanize it and kind of make it practical, tell us, if you don't mind, about a bump that y'all encountered, a problem, a situation. How did you prepare yourself to address a major difficulty? And then how did you rally the leaders around you to address that? Maybe give us some details if you don't mind.
Correct. So I'll address the obvious one, the graduation for the class of 2023, in which the district right now is in current litigation with 2 parents behind that. But here's the truth, the facts, the information. Everything was going fine throughout the year. Everything was still fine up until a week before school. But you're not going to find me one high school in America to still 1 week before graduation, there are some students who still have some things to complete. Make up attendance hours, check this form off for FAFSA, go log in and finish the course. So as an audit was being done by myself, the chief academic officer, and student services, we just realized like, oh, wow, a lot of kids had to go finish 1 or 2 things left. Like literally 1 or 2 things. So as of today, a week prior, only 5 kids have completed, but the other 28 have minimal to do. We hold a meeting on Monday as a superintendent. I tell the kids, hey, you all have now 4 days, 96 hours, which is a lifetime because as a former high school principal in Houston ISD, sometimes you're 9 minutes before graduation.
That's right.
So I'm like,
96 hours.
That's so much time.
Like,
so much time.
A lifetime to do all this. So we tell them, but we live in this day and age of, I'm still going to communicate with my parents, and my parents aren't going to notify the school. Our parents are going to go to Facebook. And so when you go to Facebook to try to do these things, the media in the Waco area, I mean, they love to tell a bad story about Marlin ISD. They sped so fast down Highway 6, probably hit a few potholes on the way.
Right.
And they met some students and some children at a park here in Marlin. Now, mind you, 96 hours. So instead of getting your work done and finishing those small things, you're at a
You've
park.
got time for an interview.
You know how it is.
Right.
Everyone loves the TV.
Right.
And so, mind you, I haven't gotten any email, any call from a parent or a kid. Well, they get on the news, and a young lady says, well, they told me I have to make up a half credit because my credit for keyboarding didn't count, and they said I only have a few days to do it. Well, here's what's wrong with that. First, keyboarding hasn't been a credit since 1987. Okay, let's go ahead and get that cleared up. Okay. Keyboarding, I don't know who touched it, clearly before my time, but keyboarding should have been a credit. Then you're saying that the district or a principal or someone told you that you had days to make up half a credit. Well, right now, man, you just put integrity. Excuse me, you just put into question the integrity of everyone's grades.
Yeah.
Because if this is what the counselor and principal are saying, I'm going to check this out because I'm not going to read that script at graduation, the TEA, and turn your task. Oh, no, ma'am. So I spoke with TEA and everyone. I said, no, we're going to just postpone to give us a time to check it out. Within a matter of days, everyone had completed everything. She misspoke, but now it's an actual community, statewide, nationwide outcry. People talking so bad about me and dragging me through the mud, and I'm the worst thing ever. And I just kept on walking, like, okay, y'all talking, but you don't know a thing. And so it actually created somewhat of a divide in the community because you have the parents of the children who know that, well, most of the parents of the children who understand that, okay, we appreciate the additional time given. A short delay is not a problem. They're still graduating, and now it's verified to where they're not going to call us back in January and say, psych, go ahead and bring back your diploma because it's not valid. But that major bump was I had to just fly, go on every news station in the history of news stations, Fox News, and I'm scared. I was scared to go on Fox News. Hey guys, it's obvious. I voted for Obama. You know what I'm saying? It's like shocker. You know what I'm saying? I voted for Kamala. You know, like, it's like I don't think anyone's shocked there. You know, but
too funny.
But George Bush is my favorite president by far, no questions asked. I'm a G-Dub guy. But anyway, so I mean, I'm on Fox News and anxiety high at that point. But the major bump just came from being attacked, and now you have the world calling our children less than. The perception of Marlin that was so negative, we had worked so hard to fix, was like, you're right, I knew it was those kids. And when I said those kids, you see a picture of African-American children. And so that hurt me to the core, knowing that you now have outside people speaking so poorly about our children when they didn't do anything wrong. But I think it showed everyone, and I heard some all the time, whenever you put this stuff on Facebook, you're opening it up for the world to now judge you. And so there's no amount of public pressure, media pressure that's ever going to change me or anyone in the district to stop doing the right thing. And I had to explain to them, Guys, I grew up in the church. I've been speaking in microphones since I've been 3 years old, and I've never met a microphone that I don't like.
There you go. There you go. Wow. And so powerful. And one of the questions I was going to ask you earlier, and this story is, I mean, the story, but the situation that you talked about is a great example about this, is earlier in the show, you're like, I'm not loved by all. I'm not going to ask you for the list, but there's a list of people in your community who are not singing your praises. And sometimes, particularly in rural communities where we're so tight knit, there's so much role multiplicity where the person that this negative thing happens at work-wise, okay, they sit 2 rows behind you in church, or you're definitely going to see them in the grocery store every time you go, or that kind of thing, right? And so there's sometimes in rural communities there's this pressure to focus on being liked, right? Yeah. But that doesn't improve outcomes for kids. And it's not that they're directly contrary to each other. So you have to be hated in order to do great things for kids. But, talk to a rural ed leader out there who is struggling with that or thinking about that and maybe leans too hard one way to this, trying to be a people pleaser, right? In order to be an effective leader, you probably can't be liked by everyone. And so what are your thoughts on that, Darryl?
We have to be a student outcomes pleaser. Our goal is to make sure that our children are achieving everything that we have sought out for them to achieve. And we must do it in a respectful way. Mm-hmm. Our job is to respect our parents, respect our staff, love our children, and then achieve the goals that way. It's not about being liked. And I understand. It's always going to be emotions over logic. Mm-hmm. And we have to make sure that everything that we could probably explain in a very logical way, emotionally, someone might not care about it. Mm-hmm. But if you're authentic, if you have been consistent over time with your heart, people are not going to like you. And in a very simple way, even in a rural community where you will see them I see them on aisle 7. Sometimes I go from 6 to 8 because for some reason 7, they just
every time. Yep.
Every time, because I love plain goldfish. They taste like the crackers for communion. And so for some reason, every time I eat plain goldfish, I feel extra holy.
There you go.
And so, but they're on aisle 7 at the HEB in Marlin. And so I peek first. I peek and then no one, then I go grab them. Then someone shows up. But it's okay to not be liked because I want to make sure that as a leader, as a superintendent, as whatever my role is in my school system, but especially in my rural school system, that I know I've done everything that I can to help improve the outcomes for the children that God has placed me in a chair to go help improve them. Plus, if people don't like you, I promise you, it will not impact your direct deposit. Mine still dings on the 15th every month. And some bad times I get paid on the 14th. I mean, like that's the truth. And we focus on the wrong things. Like I said today, we're being authentic. You're an adult. As an adult, stop caring about being liked. You know, it's weird.
Right.
I mean, you should want, as long as you're being respectful for your output, you cannot control the way that anyone feels about you.
Yeah.
So true.
The same people who love you might not like you the next day, but I know that I like and I'm in love with student outcomes.
Right.
And I'm going to respect everyone every single day.
Right. And love what you make happen for kids and love what you make happen for the community. And that's what we're there to do.
You know what I heard from that whole answer? Is Darryl bragging about having an HEB in Marlin?
I heard that too. That'll be on our Facebook page and Alpine.
I think that was just braggadocious.
HEB in Marlin. It might be the second one. First one Kerrville, second one Marlin, because it is. But no, I'm telling you,
the old school HEB.
So
old school. We are fancy in Marlin with HEB.
It's like a perennial April Fool's Day post that happens in Alpine about an HEB coming here, and then everyone gets so excited.
I saw a super Walmart this year.
It gets us every year, y'all. So love that.
Shout out to Lowe's. We still love you.
Yes. I got one last kind of wrap up question for us before Bradley signs us off. So one of the things we try to really focus on is an actionable takeaway, right? And so, I mean, I've had so much inspiration in this episode. I can't wait to go back and re-listen because I need to hear this for some of the work that I'm leading in my district right now. And so I took a bunch of notes, which weren't to ask you questions. They're like, Michelle, you need to think about that. You need to do this part of this. But wrap us up, Darryl, with like one actionable tool, strategy, mindset that you hope every rural ed leader listener walks away from this episode, thinking about after hearing your story.
You are an advocate for an entire community. And advocacy, it extends at the level with the legislature. Advocacy extends to the level of the mindset of the adults in the community. And advocacy is highly crucial as you protect and as you guarantee outcomes for children, both academically and socially. That word advocate, it is powerful. Because if you think about our greatest leaders in the world, like George W. Bush, he advocated for top 10%. He got a lot of us in college. Hook them. And so if you truly are an advocate, that means you're going to do something that's bold. You might make a decision in which it is not liked. If you are a true advocate, you're not worried about the personal perception. You're more worried about what's going to happen for children, for staff, for a community if you do not act on what you know you need to act on.
I love that.
So, and also learn school finance.
Oh yeah, and that PS, yeah,
that's an asterisk.
So good.
That's true. A lot of leaders don't know a thing about finance. I'm like, how did you learn it? Please,
that'll get you.
I need them to learn that.
That'll get you.
I think he just volunteered to teach a future school finance
he
course.
Sure did. I heard it here.
Colorado State University. That's what I heard.
And I'll add to that like what that gets me excited about, beside the school finance. I mean, we can talk about that all day, and that does get me wound up. Is I just love this vision of, so Marlin has this incredible advocate in Darryl. Alpine has this incredible advocate in Michelle. How do we get, across these 600 districts across Texas, right? That happening in every single rural location, to where our state leaders are like, oh, you heard what's going on, Marlin? You hear all that great stuff? Man, they're making some noise about this, but they got some receipts, hear what's going on in Alpine, blah, blah, blah. And then it just becomes
a national model.
To where we cannot be ignored because.
I have an idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
And this is just not a promotion of anything, but I believe that what Dr. Seiler is doing with the Task Small Schools Network,
yes, sir,
can and needs to be scaled, or continue to be scaled, to make it larger. As we bring in leaders, and hopefully now aspiring leaders. So now, it's like small schools, it's us. But if we had like an aspiring small schools network administrator,
that's right.
That's what it is along the way, because we have all these aspiring programs and it's just a general pool. But if we take the work that you're doing, Dr. Seiler, Dr. Gilder, Dr. Pappy, like all of us, if we put us in a room on a whiteboard, we'll figure it out in 10 minutes.
So good. And we're going to play this at a future convening where we actually get these people in the room, because what's so amazing about this, Darryl, is like, you didn't even know that's exactly what Bradley and I are trying to work on behind the scenes, right? Inspired by the work of Dr. Jill Seiler, who you referenced, who works for the Texas Association of School Administrators, and is doing amazing work about, kind of sitting superintendents, small school network, but then building this into this really like, how do we equip and empower the next generation and the current generation of rural ed leaders?
You said accelerator.
I love that.
Accelerator. How do we accelerate each other in this work? I promised the listeners an amazing podcast. You did not disappoint, Dr. Henson. I truly miss you as a person and as a professional. We're going to have to connect soon, but thank you for your time today. We know that you got a few, I think you said you got 6 things you need to take care of this year, 6 more issues. So we know you got a few things to do. So we're very appreciative of your time. We'll make sure that all of our podcast listeners are linked to your profiles, and from rural ed leaders, from our small town to yours. Your voice matters. Your leadership matters. Your kids matter. Thanks for being the leader your community needs. Have a good one.
Thanks.